What if there was a game somewhere out there in the void of Steam's recommended, past the hentai clickers and asset flips made by Romanian war criminals, that hits you with more tension than a 9-year-old in Section 8 dropping $120 on Fortnite skins with mommy's credit card, knowing that the pantry is already empty, and in the coming weeks, his family will be forced to choose between eating their dog or their cat in order to survive. But hey, that drip ain't free, and neither is dignity. Today, I'll be talking about Age of Darkness Final Stand. Age of Darkness is the RTS I turn to whenever my blood pressure and heart rate spike from dealing with my wife's complete and repeated inability to exercise basic common sense, after sending me to the store to buy maxi pads, only to be left on red and ignoring me for the rest of the day. When I ask, "What size is your vagina?" How am I supposed to know what size to get her when there are 5 different options? Naturally, I keep playing Age of Darkness not because I enjoy it, but because I'm hoping the combination of stress and sleep deprivation will finally trigger a stroke that permanently fries my frontal lobe. With any luck, I'll be reduced to a blank stare and a drool rag, and she'll have to care for me full time. Maybe then she'll understand even a fraction of the frustration she's inflicted on me over the years. Until that blessed moment arrives, though, I remain trapped in this disaster of a marriage, and Age of Darkness is the only thing that makes the emotional void just a bit more bearable. But I digress. The only path to victory involves defending your fortress from waves of seemingly endless invaders that insist the land is theirs by some 1,000-year-old blood claim no one can verify and no one can disprove, who will generously offer you 2 outcomes: die quickly in a brutal mauling, or die slowly and watch while your hospitals are reduced to rubble, your wheat fields are burned, and the men and women who weren't slaughtered are dragged off into slavery. The men will have it easy, as they will only have to work long, grueling hours for meager pay, while women have to endure a fate far worse. They will be forced into making 85 cents for every dollar earned by a male slave. How could you possibly hope to defend your holy land from such horrors? Fortunately, this game has many unwavering meat puppets to choose from that will defend your land whether willingly or not, such as a goth girl, the French, and a lot of absent fathers. But before we can descend into the abyss, let's talk about lore. Long ago, there was a war between the elves and the nightmares, and by war, I mean the elves were busy doing blood magic, while humanity was being sodomized by interdimensional horrors. Seeing this, the elves forged massive crystals from their own blood and used them to seal the nightmares inside a shadow realm known as the Veil. Feeling unusually charitable, they taught humanity the wonders of language, civility, and the delicate art of functioning without devouring one another. And with these gifts, mankind built a prosperous civilization, one founded on witch burnings, slavery, and a political system so thoroughly corrupt that every police encounter ends in one of 2 ways: a voluntary donation to some offshore account, or detainment, a procedural beating, and a stack of charges conveniently filed under violent crimes in aid of racketeering. After decades of inbreeding and mercury-based medicine, Ezekiel is born and crowned king. As the years passed, the king's increasingly bizarre behavior drove the queen to suspect infidelity. After weeks of excuses and midnight disappearances, she awoke one night to find him slipping quietly from their bedchambers. Curious, she followed him and uncovered his terrible secret. The king was fornicating with the couch cushions. Even worse, the couch was only 10 years old at the time of the incident. Disturbed beyond comprehension, the queen seized the blacklight and searched the palace. What she discovered shattered the kingdom's last illusion of dignity. Every doorway, bed frame, cabinet, and even the family portraits had all been desecrated by the king's relentless degeneracy. No corner of the palace had escaped his goonery. Once exposed as a sexual deviant, King Ezekiel was immediately cast out by the elves and banished into the Veil. But for the gooners of the realm, his banishment became the final straw. After decades of oppression and mockery by the elven elite, the Gooners rose in revolt, massacring the elves in an act of self-preservation. Decades later, King Ezekiel began to miss the warmth of his beloved couch cushions. His lonely nights curdled into madness. In a blind rage, he started smashing through the blood crystals, and that's where you come in, the only one capable of stopping this couchophile from defiling that couch once again. After choosing survival mode, the only true test of one's will to live, you'll be asked to select the difficulty. Now, don't feel any shame in picking easy. In fact, you should pick easy. The developers didn't create this game so you could win. They didn't build it for fun, enjoyment, or even profit. They built it for the same reason Victorian surgeons created lobotomies. They wanted to watch someone who was once so full of life be reduced to a drooling, docile, empty husk. Don't give them the satisfaction. Then you'll have to pick from one of 3 political parties, each with their own unique interpretation of how to best worship Moloch or Baal, respectively. Then choose the overworked hero who will be the first to be blamed when everything goes wrong, and have their child fed into a fire to appease the gods for their incompetent leadership. Heroes are your strongest units and play very similarly to a League of Legends champion. I mean, that's what I've heard. I wouldn't know, I've never played League of Legends. I grew up with a father figure. Unlike League, you gain your abilities in a set order, so you don't have to stress your pretty little gamer brain about what ability you should get next. Instead, you can stress about how you're going to live with a permanent headset indent. And starting in the order they were presented to me, we have the Order. The Order rose after the war on the Elves, a regime whose answer to Hell opening was absolute military control. The Order convinced its citizens to surrender resources for the greater good. Those unwilling to compromise were drafted and sent straight to the front lines as disposable infantry. The Order's heroes are Edwin and Merrick. Edwin was once an ordinary soldier until the day he caught an elf drinking from a human's only water fountain, which led to a confrontation that ended with Edwin horribly disfigured, a constant reminder of his biggest failure, having an elf touch him. And the elves commemorating the elf by naming the street after him. Edwin stopped being a man and became a walking monument to bitterness, hatred, and racial paranoia as he morphed into the world's first boomer. And from that point on, whenever he saw an elf, his body cam would mysteriously malfunction and the elf would never be seen again. Merrick is an alcoholic, and like most deadbeat fathers, alcohol doesn't just numb his pain, it empowers him. The more he drinks, the stronger he becomes, turning him into a terrifying force on the battlefield. The secret to his power: whenever he looks at the enemy, he imagines they are his own children, refusing to grab him another mug of ale. That delusion fueled his fury, allowing him to carve through entire armies with the rage of a man with useless children. The more he drinks, the more he needs. His gluttony truly knows no bounds. His ability, Drinks Are On Me, activates once he's taken enough damage. He grabs a glug from his big jug, numbing the pain so he can fight longer. Crushing Weight is an ability he practiced on his wife, where he leaps up into the air and slams down onto the ground, seriously injuring any housewife unfortunate enough to burn his dinner. Halbert Hurricane is an ability I don't think I've ever seen done in a video game. And Holy Protection, which is exactly what he'll need if his wife ever goes to the police. Little does Merrick know that when the war is finally over, the only thing he has to return to is an empty home and prohibition. The rebellion consists of units who defected from the Order when Baron Joffrey Ebonstein was arrested for running an island built on slave trade and debauchery, where he would only invite the most powerful to his island. Less than a week after being arrested, he was found with 3 ballista bolts in his head. The Order investigated the matter and concluded the injuries were self-inflicted and no foul play was involved. Naturally, many people in the rebellion found this hard to believe, especially since he was preparing to testify against the popes and nobles, exposing the public to the goings-on of the island. Because of the Order's rampant political corruption, the rebellion formed an insurrection. Their main goal isn't to fix the system, it's already too far gone. All they want is a higher minimum wage, because if they have to live in a corrupt society, they might as well be living comfortably. But for now, they're used to shit pay, so until the Order gives in to their demands, they're going to work for even shittier pay. All units for the rebellion cost less, with only the promise of more money when they overthrow the Order, but by the time that happens, there's going to be a lot less of them to pay. The heroes of the rebellion consist of the leader, Elise, and Cyrus. Elise, much like every temptress throughout human history, has absolutely zero combat viability, but due to her voluptuous assets, she doesn't have to fight the horrors directly. Instead, with her royal command ability, she can instantly summon one of her many simps to her side, and they will gladly charge headfirst into unspeakable death for the chance of some backwash from her cup of wine to spill on them. Elise is only happy when others throw their lives away for what she believes in, and has an ability most females use, Royal Decree, where she becomes stronger by hurting those closest to her, and the moment she detects fear or insecurity in a man, she will kill them instantly, which will transfer their life energy to her own. Seeing the betrayal in her loved one's eyes only empowers her further, sending her into a euphoric frenzy that temporarily boosts her strength. Nearby units get a surge of determination in the desperate hope that they won't be the next one she chooses. Cyrus joined the rebellion not because he believes in it and knows the world would be a much better place with the order gone. He joined the rebellion to get away from his baby mama when she started demanding outrageous things like, "Can we please get a bed frame?" and "No, it's not normal for every single one of your underwear to have skid marks. Please wipe." Cyrus is the only ranged hero, and his abilities are very similar to how he likes his home. Very basic. In fact, if you haven't just crawled out of your mother's womb, you can probably already guess what his abilities do. His abilities include Snipe, which is when he shoots his bow and does damage, or Splintering Shot, where he shoots his bow and does damage, and his ultimate, when he shoots his bow a lot and does damage. The Volatists thrive in chaos, and because of that, they hire almost exclusively from France, specifically people who survived homelessness there. In this timeline, France's knife crime became so rampant that opposable thumbs gradually became less important than speed and lethality. As the French evolved natural weapons, their hands became sharp, pointed, and blade-like, allowing them to strike instantly without reaching for tools. Those who never adapted were thoroughly stabbed out of the gene pool. One Frenchman's life is worth half as much as anyone else's. How do I know this? Because you can recruit 2 standard Frenchmen for the same cost and training time it takes every other faction to produce a single standard soldier. Don't feel bad when one of them dies, since their life expectancy dramatically increased the second they were recruited off the streets of London, where they would have met a far more gruesome end. Every other faction's units have a chance to be feared at night by an enemy's attacks, but whenever Frenchmen are afraid, this triggers their flight or fight response. And in London, all you can do is fight, so being frightened emboldens them, making them fight as though they're about to lose their prime begging spot. Since the French are so desensitized to fear, they suffer no night-related debuffs that plague the other factions. The heroes of the Volatists consist of their president, Emmanuel Macron, who would be better to lead a nation into chaos than a man who has proven he is more than capable. As you can see by his appearance, he was one of the many unfortunate children whose arms had been mangled by machinery while working in a factory. Macron does his best work at night when his passive is active. Anyone he kills at night will heal him. Claw Dash is his move of choice, where he lunges at his victim and swipes. Many unfortunate homeless people have met their end to this move. And his ability Serenity, where he finally gives in to his French heritage and destroys everything he sees. Aurelia, the freaky goth whose diet of talkies and sour watermelon vapes have left her mentally unstable, now believes she's unlocked the hidden powers of astrology and gemstones to manifest her goals. Her abilities include Flail Whip, where she uses a heavy metal flail with a crystal embedded in its head to bludgeon enemies. Fully convinced, the crystal makes it deal extra psychic damage. Honestly though, I'm pretty sure if you hit someone in the head with a rock, it's going to do damage either way. Midnight Bloom, where she takes a page from Ted Kaczynski's playbook and delivers timed explosives cleverly disguised as precious gemstones to her enemies. Dark Fury. Strangely, I've noticed this ability automatically activates for about a week, leaving her enraged. Then has nearly a month cooldown, only to activate on its own once again. And her ult, where she throws stones at non-believers. With these abilities, she's poised to become the most powerful suburban woman alive. Now, I would imagine each faction was supposed to encourage a different playstyle, but in practice, they mostly just make one thing cheaper or let you suffer slightly less at night. When the game starts, you're thrown into a randomly generated map with your hero, a tiny band of faction-specific religious fanatics, and if you're unlucky, archers.
What do you want?
Archers are completely worthless. I recommend selecting them, then sending them to your preferred edge of the map, and watch as all your problems fade away. Your mission: defend your keep. Why? Because it's the only thing keeping you from joining the rest of the peasantry, broke, hungry, and eventually getting eaten by the undead. Starting, you'll notice at the top right of your screen is a clock that counts down until the veil ruptures and releases a giant horde of nightmares. And as they come barreling towards you, you'll know how an unsupervised 16-year-old feels at the White House. Pray. You can only hope they don't breach your walls and fill your holy land with millions of unwanted creatures. Survive and you're given a permanent buff, but the next Death Knight will throw twice as many horrors at you. Each wave grows stronger, faster, hornier. Your keep is turning time into gold. Will this money ever reach the poor? No. It goes to the banks and weapons manufacturers, bailing them out of reckless decisions made on the stock market. The trickle-down effect still hasn't reached the working class, and maybe that's for the best. A well-fed peasant might start asking if their gruel tasting like plastic has anything to do with the rise of microplastics showing up in their testicles. They say gold can't buy happiness, but I don't know, I seem to be much happier than those in my sweatshops. Any good politician knows to maintain your rule, you need to make sure the impoverished stay out of the voting booths. I do this by putting them somewhere on the map where daily life is a struggle. Then I ask the Rothschild family to move in, so they increase the property value of all homes nearby. Living paycheck to paycheck makes the peasants docile, as their taxes pay for my tier 3 keep. Thanks, taxpayers. And for good measure, I surround my keep with those of higher status, who think their wealth has afforded them a better place in the world, but they're just my last line of defense. This game truly lets you feel the power our landlords hold over us all. Before you can recruit any units, you'll need available food, a peasant, and a training hall. Fortunately, units require very little training, or rather, they'll receive very little training that would require both time and money, and those are resources I can't spare. Even if a half-starved conscript succeeds in dragging down just one nightmare before being pulverized into a red paste, the numbers still work out in your favor. The moment he dies, his food upkeep disappears, and a recruitment slot opens up, just in time for his freshly orphaned children to continue the family tradition of dying in horrific agony. Having so many spouses die in battle means there's no shortage of single hot and horny peasants. Their thin demeanor may look intentional, but they're actually suffering from severe malnutrition. Each faction has 2 unique units, while also sharing certain units with other factions. The Order fields the unique Light Bearers and Order Knights. It also shares soldiers with the Rebellion and Arbalists with the Volatists. The Rebellion has access to the unique Rogues and Hunters, and shares Sentinels with the Volatists. Sentinels aren't so much armor, they'll be able to tank the most vicious of beatings, but no amount of armor will protect him from his father's fits of unfiltered rage. The Volatists command the unique Cultists and Harbingers. I'd recommend researching the Hunters or Arbalists first, which is 2 of the only viable ranged units in the game, because I don't consider the Archers as a good use of my resources. As soon as you get some Arbalists, I'd recommend making Archers meat shields, so the Arbalists know what will happen if they start acting up. Every unit in the game will follow every one of your commands, with no regards for their own personal well-being. Most of the time, that's a good thing, until you forget about a small squad, and they end up dying to a giant toxic brap cloud, even though there's breathable air 2 feet away from them. To create larger armies, however, you'll need a lot of food. Food is required to build homes and increase population. Once that population has grown, you'll need even more food to train units from said population. It's a bit like being taxed on your paycheck, then taxed again on anything you buy. Fortunately, no real government would ever dream of implementing such a cruel and antiquated system. Your main options for food are fisheries and farming. Fisheries are surprisingly profitable. In fact, a fisherman could afford a modest home with a single good catch, if the state didn't confiscate most of the profits. Farming, however, is what will provide the majority of your food. Everywhere you can put a farm, you should put a farm. In fact, your game should look more like a farming simulator rather than an RTS. As you expand into new territory, you'll uncover resources critical to building your empire and keeping your wages safe and productive. Wood and stone are the most abundant and accessible resources. Wood is used in the construction of most buildings. Stone is required for constructing a workshop. To unlock advanced technologies, I highly recommend surrounding your workshop with ballista towers. Not for your workers' protection, of course, but so the towers can decapitate anyone not keeping up with their quotas. Now, there's something I need to get off my chest. I don't see why so many people have a problem with grown adults dating minors. It's a noble profession. I know they are sweaty, stink, and probably have opinions on migrants that, let's just say, are unfavorable, but that doesn't mean you should be socially ostracized for dating them. Iron isn't just important for those struggling with iron deficiency, it's also one of the most valuable resources. Iron is required for any mid to late game buildings. I shouldn't be making fun of people who are iron deficient. They already have enough trouble standing up for themselves. And finally, gold. The moment you discover gold, stop whatever you're doing and focus all your efforts on securing it. The earlier you start mining it, the less you have to rely on taxing the poor. When expanding your territory, you'll run into many different types of nightmares. Crawlers are the most common and basic enemy. Olympic javelin throwers that will constantly bombard your units. And axemen, very basic. So basic in fact I usually forget they exist. Spitters will test your micromanaging abilities. Their only move is highly telegraphed and easily dodged alone. But in a horde, they will constantly wipe out your weaker units. Wraiths will personally educate you on how many stab wounds the human body can withstand before the body succumbs to its injuries and bleeds to death. And most of the time, that isn't very many. Busters are designed to only attack units that you aren't looking at. They will slowly walk up to them and bust, killing all units in a 5-block radius. Mysteriously, this is how many of my units who plan to unionize end up dying. Crushers only spawn on death knights and will destroy your defenses and have their way with as many of your citizens they can get their hands on. Only after blowing 4 of their loads will they start to show signs of slowing, and after their 7th, you can start thinking about fighting back. Now, your wasteland of human suffering needs protection. There's a wide variety of buildable defenses, like the Ballista Tower and the upgraded Ballista Tower, the Grand Bellows, breaking the Geneva Convention. How am I allowed to get away with this war crime? I'm not. The United Nations strongly condemns my actions and find the fact that I would use such a weapon concerning, but they aren't concerned enough to do anything about it. So I continue burning alive those who illegally cross the border to try and escape this hellhole. Look, we took every reasonable precaution. We put warning labels on all of them. If people still ignore them, that's hardly my responsibility. Just because I haven't built a single school doesn't mean it's my fault they can't read. And that's about it for defenses. Buildings are meant to be used alongside units. If you don't have a large army for defense, your defenses will be about as effective as calling a white person a racial slur. Whenever one of your structures gets attacked while you aren't looking, you'll get a little Amber Alert. It's perfect to snap you out of whatever you're doing so you can go deal with the problem. But unlike Amber Alert, I don't recommend disabling it. These alerts are important and won't wake you up at 3 in the morning just because some retard handlers lost their autistic child. As you explore the map, you will eventually run into points of interest. Now, you may believe you are lucky if you find one of these, but points of interest are designed to slow down your progress by making the land on and around it unavailable until all the enemies in this circle are cleared. Then you'll have to stand in the circle until a meter fills up. It's so much fun, you might have trouble keeping your eyes open. Your reward? An almost used up bottle of lotion and a passed around cum sock. Not even enough resources for even the most depraved gooner to start a goon sesh. If that doesn't sound exciting enough, some points of interest have a boss version of a basic enemy that's practically guaranteed to kill half your army if you don't know its specific weaknesses. As for the reward, defeating an elite boss gives you Dark Essence, and depending on what stage of the game you're in, is as useful as getting 3 Bitcoin in 2010. Dark Essence can be used either to unlock the final tier of a unit's skill tree or instantly revive your hero when they die. And after many failed attempts, you're finally able to defeat the 4th wave, and just when you think the slaughter is over, the ground begins to shake, and you realize why this is humanity's final stand. Age of Darkness. It's a lot of fun, but I can't fully recommend it. While they are billions exist, the game that clearly inspired Age of Darkness, both do one thing better than the other. Age of Darkness has a far superior survival mode and multiplayer. which They Are Billions does not have, which can be played with a friend even if you both don't have a legal copy, while They Are Billions has a better campaign. So if you like the way the gameplay looked in Age of Darkness, but prefer a good story, I recommend They Are Billions. But if all you care about is gameplay, then Age of Darkness is for you. I give Age of Darkness the studio abandoned it out of the amount of archers that died in the making of this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, like and subscribe. There will be more videos coming soon. See ya!